meeting? Thank you. If you could, Chuck, I think you're handling the meeting. You could give us a voice.
No, it's
Oh,
me.
Lenore,
Chuck
I'm
is
sorry.
it's fine. Chuck is my backup in case my Wi-Fi goes away because I'm in the middle of nowhere. But hi, everybody. My name is Leonor, for those of you who don't know me. The only request we have is that you mute yourself so that we don't have any background noise while we are doing the meeting. Other than that, you're good to go. And if you need to ask a question, you always can unmute yourself and just ask away. Okay. Thank you, Robert, and over to you.
Thanks, Leonore. We'll
Aren't we a little early?
Leo,
It's just
where are you?
2 minutes early, a little early. People are still coming on pretty fast.
Okay, we'll just hold off for a sec here. We'll
Leo, I didn't understand. Where are you? I couldn't tell. It looked like you were in a hospital gown.
You're muted, Leonor.
Even though it's white, it's not a hospital gown. I'm way up north in Portugal, right at the top, close to Spain. But I'm traveling, so that's why sometimes, and I have a fly in my car. I'm in my car.
All right, well, be careful.
What time is it there?
the technology is just absolutely amazing to know.
Well,
Just
It's
amazing.
It's 6:29 in Portugal. It's 7:29 if you're in Spain in the afternoon. If you see me going like this, it's the fly, okay?
So Portugal doesn't have daylight savings time.
We do, but we're in summertime right now. We're always 6 hours ahead of Texas.
funny that is. Okay, shall we?
Spain later. Why is Spain 7:30 if you're 6:30?
Hi, Molly.
Because of where we are in the world, we're right on top of Greenwich Meridian. So us and UK, we're always in the same time zone, which is 6:30, and the rest of Europe is 1 hour ahead of us. And if you go into Russia, then it'll start being even more hours ahead of us.
Wow.
That's kind of like Newfoundland in Canada. They're half an hour behind. That's a Canadian joke.
Hey?
Hey,
I've been in Nova Scotia. They're more than a half an hour behind. It's a good place, though. It's a beautiful country.
Oh, Susan, it's great to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Okay, sorry.
we'll
Thank
go
you.
ahead and start our meeting, and I'll bring the oldest Lions Club meeting to order. And if we could say the Pledge of Allegiance, Glenda will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and to the Texas flag.
Oh,
If we
United
can
States
stand,
flag.
Okay.
we can stand and we'll go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now we'll do the pledge to the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Thank you, Glenda. We now have anyone who has a guest. We have John, you could acknowledge your guest, but we'll bring her. You can elaborate on her later.
This is Norman. I may very have one or two joining later. Our best friends, Janet Taborn.
Janet's already here.
Excuse me?
Janet is already here. Yeah.
Well,
Hello.
I want to welcome Janet here to join us. And we may very well have one more, but we'll look for that later. But thank you very much for Janet for coming.
Does anyone else have guests?
I have 3 guests today with me because they're with me in my car. I have my dad, I have my sister-in-law, and that's my sister-in-law, that's my dad, and my brother. So those are my guests for today.
Oh, very good. And hello to your dad from me. Anyone else have guests? With that, with no further guests, we have birthdays to announce today. And we have Greg Harkrider, whose birthday is on the 6th. And Sam Hammett, his birthday is also on the 6th. And Megan Mohammed.
Tucci, she's going to Tucci now.
Oh, Tucci. Okay, Tucci. Her birthday is on the 8th. Covers the birthdays. Do we, one announcement that I was hoping we would have, is Greg due here? Is he on a roster? I don't see him. Ann, if you can give us.
I'm here, but I was muted. I am here.
Oh, you are here. Okay, very good. Greg, if you could give us an update on our plastic program, or maybe you've got a different name for it, but.
That sounds like a fine name for it. Our plastic recycling project. Wanted to give a short update and let you know to expect something following up to this. We're going to actually begin our formal collection. I've reached out to Trex and expecting registration back from them today so that we can start reporting our collections. Our early, look like you're looking at my ceiling. There I am. Our Head Start collections, at least what's been reported to me so far, we've collected over 60 pounds of plastic. A lot of that has been collected by Glenda, and Patty will be delivering that to one of the recycling drop-off places today. So we're off to a great start. We're more than 10% of the way to our goal, and we've haven't actually formally started yet. So good job, everybody. I wanted to let you know, I don't know if I'm able to share screen at this point. It looks like I can. I can find it here. I do want to remind people, we did a pretty detailed conversation about the project several weeks ago, and it's good to have a reminder of what we can and cannot collect. So wanted to go through that, and if I can get the picture up to share with you here. And then I'll talk about it briefly here, and then we'll send out an email with a couple of things in it. One is a list of the types of plastic that you can collect, just a reminder of what we talked about before. I'll also include a document if you're the kind that likes to print out things. I know we have a recycle chart on our refrigerator that reminds us what goes in the recycle bin and what goes in the trash. This you can add to that and know what goes into the plastic bag collection. It'll also include what's next. So as you collect it, the preference is that we kind of collect and drop it off as we go. And so when you collect one or two, you get one or two bags of this. We collect ours, we put it in one of the grocery bags and just start stuffing it in there. When that gets kind of full, we'll tie that off and put it in the garage, and then we'll start another one. But when you get one or two of those, there's a couple of things that you'll be able to do. And this will all be explained in the email. The first is you can weigh it if you have a handheld scale, a luggage scale, a fish scale, not the scales on the fish, but a fish weighing scale. You can weigh it yourself, jot that down and send that in an email to me, and then drop it off at one of the collection centers. Or you can contact me and I'll coordinate with our team, which right now includes myself, Ron Ruby, and Steve Riley, and then Patty Robinson at the Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired with the Leo Club's help. And we'll coordinate amongst ourselves to either arrange a handoff with you. You can drop it off at one of our homes, or we can come by and pick it up, and we'll collect and recycle that. Hopefully in the not too distant future, we can begin meeting in person again. And that'll be an opportunity for you to bring plastic to the meeting, and we'll pick it up, collect it, and take it to the drop off. so that we can start getting credit toward that as we go. The drop-off locations, if you choose to do it yourself, there are 3 different retailers in the Austin area that collect for Trex. Randall's Supermarkets is probably the most available of any of those. Kohl's department stores also collect for Trex. They may, depending on the individual store, they may have suspended that for COVID. So if you don't see their collection, you might ask about it. If they're not doing it, then you can take it to one of the other places. And then the other place, I think there are a few around. I know there's one in Sunset Valley area, is a Sprouts Farmers Market. I'm not sure if there are others in town, but Randall's Supermarket, Sprouts Farmers Market, and Kohl's stores are the places where you can drop that off. You'll notice that H-E-B and a number of other places have plastic bag collection bins out in front of their stores. Those are great and they're environmentally responsible, but they don't have a contract with Trex. And what's important for us to get credit for it is that this material gets back to Trex, since they're the one sponsoring the program. The last thing I was going to mention, again, we'll send this out in email because it's a lot to remember at one time, but this is generally any soft plastic filmy material. So the material, the plastic that grocery bags are made out of, bread bags, bubble wrap, soft bendable bubble wrap that you get in packages, or Amazon is sending a lot of just the plastic bubble wrap packages out. The only caution there is you need to take any paper labels off or just cut those out. Dry cleaning bags, newspaper sleeves, ice bags, Ziploc bags, cereal bags that are plastic out of a cereal box, the case overwrap, the plastic that goes around a case of water or soft drinks or other beverages. That's the kind of plastic that we can collect. I'll also include in that email a list of the things that are not included. Candy wrappers are not. They're soft and they're kind of plasticky, but that's not the material they collect. Bottles, things that go in the normal city recycling are not eligible for that. Paper chip bags, those mesh produce bags. Now, generally the produce bags you get in the market that you put your produce in, those plastic filmy bags, those are collectible. Those are recyclable. The mesh bags that are made of plastic, but they're a net or a mesh bag, those are not. So that's the general categories. You remember there's a long list. And again, I'll include that in the email. It's a lot to remember at one time. The rule that they use is if you're not sure, or if it's dirty, contaminated in some way, then just put it in the trash. They need clean, dry, at least reasonably clean, reasonably dry plastic that meets these requirements. And as we get going, it'll take us a while, I think, to hit our stride. That's what I've heard from other clubs that are doing this. But as you do, you'll start realizing you're using more of this plastic material than you think. I think Glenda's collected, what was it, Patty, over 55 pounds of this material from herself and the neighbors and church organizations. So thanks to everyone for participating and thinking about it. Watch for the email. It'll include my email address and phone number. If you have any questions at any time, give me a call or shoot me an email. Happy to answer those. I know I've gotten some from Ken and from JP already. I'll send out extra copies of whatever you need. And we'll go from there. The last thing is, if anybody else wants to volunteer to be part of this team as we figure out how to make this easy for everyone, let me know that too. Would be glad to have you involved in it.
Craig, I have
Remember,
one question.
there's one last thing, and then remember, our goal is to collect 500 pounds within a 6-month period, and for that, Trex will give us a bench made out of the Trex material for us to place at the location of our choosing. Yes, was that Glenda?
Yes. Are we on our honor system, or do we tell, if we take the money, take the plastic over to the store, do we say, here's 20 pounds? How are we keeping track of that?
All you have to do is drop it off. You report your weight to me.
Okay.
I'll collect that, and then I send a monthly total to Trex.
Okay.
It is on our honor system that we dropped it off. I don't know if they have a way to validate it. This plastic flows from us to the collection center. It goes from that collection center. So say you drop it off at the Randalls up here at Mopac and William Cannon, it's going to go from there to one of their distribution centers. It's going to get palletized and put into a bale, and then it'll get shipped to a Trex collection center, and then it gets shipped from there to the Trex recycling center. So it's going through a lot of hands. They're not accounting for it at a by the ounce or by the pound level.
Okay.
But let's do our best to report the right amounts to them.
Greg, is this done at any Randalls or just a specific Randalls?
It can be done at any Randall's supermarket that is collecting plastic at this time. As I said, some stores may have stopped what they're doing because of COVID. I haven't noticed that at any of the Randalls so far. If you don't see, most of the groceries have their bins, their collection bins out in front of the store. So they're fairly easy to see. I haven't been to a Kohl's yet to see where they are. If you don't see it, you can ask the manager. And I'm glad you asked that question, because that's one of the other things. If you take it and you weigh it and you drop it off as you go, a bag or two at a time, you can leave it where their normal collection is. If you have a large amount, like Patty's going to take to what she's collected from Glenda and from the school is over 50 pounds at one time, you might want to give them a call ahead of time, or when you get there, talk to the manager and say, hey, I've got a lot of plastic. Where do you want me to put it? They might prefer you take it around to the loading dock rather than putting it in front of the store, because then it blows into their parking lot and creates a mess, and they've got something to deal with. But if you do it as you go, you do a bag or two at a time, we shouldn't have any trouble with it. And again, if it's not convenient for you to do that, give me a call and we'll make it happen. Steve Riley has donated a bunch of portable scales for us to use, and I'll get those out to Steve and Ron and Patty. I'll send a couple to you for you and the Leos for us to use to weigh that. So if you don't have a scale, don't worry about that. We've got that covered, thanks to Steve. Yeah, I guess any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question, Greg.
Yeah.
The plastic bags that have the number 4 inside the little triangle thing, we can put those in this recycling, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Any plastic that has the number 2 with HDPE usually at the bottom, the number 4 with LDPE, and those are high density and low density chemical numbers. The number 2, the number 4, or if it's a black, one of those recycled triangles that says store drop off, you can collect those too.
Well, thanks very much, Greg. And we're all excited about this new project. So
thanks a lot.
I have a question.
We have another project that's just, Roberto, pardon me. Go ahead.
I've got the neighbors and they're gonna bring it to my house. I'm gonna tell them to bring it to my house. But where can I take it? Do you have your address, Greg? I know convenient for me also to go to the Texas School for the Blind, so I could, but I don't know where the School for the Blind. But I need, like, those two, I could deliver them there.
Patty, are you guys set up for people to drop it off there? I'll put my address in the chat, Roberto, and anyone else, and I'll include it in the email we send. But
okay, good. Okay.
No other questions?
We are not quite set up. I mean, if you give me a call and I'm available, I can take you around to the warehouse and we can leave it there.
Okay.
Okay, we have another project that's coming up, Jason, right down the trail here. So if Ann, if you'd give us an update on our sporting plate.
Thank you, Robert. Well, we're just about 2 weeks out from our sporting clay. It's going to be on September the 17th at Capital City Clays. And I haven't checked online today, but at this point we have 16 teams. I'm hoping we pick up a few more. We have got, I believe, 7 station sponsors, And we've got 2 shell sponsors and breakfast sponsor. And we've got about 6 silver sponsors. So I think we're doing very well. We have not this Saturday, but the following Saturday on the 11th of September, we're going to be selling raffle tickets on the shotgun at McBride's, and Jim Roberson is going to be coordinating that. And so Jim will need a couple of volunteers to help him out. Glenda and I did it 2 weeks ago, and we set the bar pretty high. We sold $1,025 in tickets. So I hope y'all do as well next Saturday. I am looking for volunteers to help out on Friday, working primarily at the stations or helping with the food, managing the food. And then we'll have some, we're giving our gift this year is what's called a cooling towel. And we're going to put those in ice water. And then as the teams go out, we need someone there to hand out the towels, one per person. And then we'll also be selling some raffle tickets. And
I want to do that. I volunteer to hand out the towels.
The cool part. Okay. Anyway, I'm looking for some volunteers also then to work at the stations. And it's going to be a really good time. Tommy has arranged for us to have the cannon start. We'll have the Texas Cowboys cannon to start the event. I believe we're going to have some of the UT skeet team out there shooting, filling in on teams and helping us as volunteers. It's going to be a really fun day. We've got some good prizes, and I appreciate everybody's help. Mac and Jim have been working really hard on this. Our partners, JDRF and the NFL alumni, they've been working hard. Tommy has done an amazing job putting together the flurry competition. So it's going to be a really great day, and we're hoping for maybe a little cooler weather than we've had in past Junes. But if you're interested in helping out, let me know. I too will be sending you an email with all the details, and just ask you to let me know if you're planning to help out so I can kind of judge where I need to place people. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann. A lot of work, much appreciated. We have one project that we kind of put on hold, and if Patty, if you could just elaborate on that, so we're well aware of what's happening with our casino night.
Casino night is on hold until February. The date is 11th. Thank you. That is still a Friday from 6 to 10. So if you have tickets, they will be good. Just change your date on the ticket. And I'm going to try to come up with a little prize for all those people that bought early tickets.
Good. And just as a reminder, if you sold tickets to the function, call your people and let them know that it's been put on hold. And also the people that have made donations and so on, keep them aware of what's happening. Hold that, let them know. It's time, I think, now for our speaker. And if Norm could go ahead and introduce our speaker.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure for me to be able to introduce our speaker today. She is my friend, and she is the executive director of the nonprofit volunteer-run Funeral Consumers Alliance of Central Texas. Again, it's mentioned, it's nonprofit, it's volunteer, it's a wonderful organization. I have been going at least on 2 occasions to presentations, seminars that she has offered through both Lifetime Learning Institute as well as the University of Texas's OLLI programs. They have 5 different programs, and they constantly ask Nancy to come back to talk about a subject that's a little bit difficult, but it's certainly worthwhile and certainly of value. And I found it to be such that I've gone back to listen on 2 or 3 different occasions. So the topic today is going to be about what to know before you go. And I am delighted to be able to introduce Nancy Walker, and we'll give you all a round of applause. Nancy.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And now I'm going to see if I remember the lessons that Leo so graciously taught me about share screen. All right, Leo, here we go. She's watching. Make sure I get it right. Okay, just a moment, please. There we go. Okay, this is the first page of my PowerPoint, which I will go through as quickly as I can because I love questions. For me, that is the best part of getting together with a group, is to hear what you would like to know and see if I have an answer for you. Okay, so I do want you to know what our mission statement is. It's very service oriented, just as the work that you all do is very service oriented. And as Norm said, we're a nonprofit organization staffed entirely by volunteers, and we have a 5-county service area. Although I must say, most of the presentations and classes that we provide are in Williamson and Travis County. But with Zoom, we're trying to overcome that so we can serve everyone equally. Our group is affiliated with the National Funeral Consumers Alliance. There are about 70 local FCAs around the country, and there are 3 of us here in Texas. Not just ours, which is Austin based, but also FCA of North Texas, which is in Plano, and FCA of San Antonio. Really, the primary way that we accomplish our mission is to educate and empower people in our community. And we really are eager to talk to anyone who will invite us to talk. Unfortunately, we don't have a landslide of invitations because the topic is so difficult for many people, even though, as I like to say in my classes, the mortality rate on the planet is holding steady at 100%. So we have been teaching, for more than 10 years now, an 8-session class. Norm was in the class in the spring of 2020, Norm and his wife, but we had to stop after the 4th session because of COVID, and they're coming back for the fall class, which is going to start on September 14th. It's 8 2-hour sessions. If you think you might be interested, Norm is the person who can tell you how to register, or you can just go to the LLI website, which is really easy, lliaustin.org. There are 3 seats remaining in the class that starts on Tuesday morning, September 14th. As Norm also mentioned, I've gone out and talked to all 5 groups at UT OLLI, and a special shout out to Molly Tower. Molly, are you still here? She's probably on mute. Anyway, I saw Molly's name, and Molly is my contact person for a 6-session seminar that I will be doing for one of the OLLI groups starting in October.
Yes, Nancy, I'm here, and we're really, really excited to have you at OLLI Quest.
Oh, thank you, Molly. It's been such a pleasure.
You're going to be broadcast out to all of the Quest, all of the OLLI groups at the same time. So
I
covered.
will, I'll still be thanking Leo for the training that she gave me today. So hopefully that will go smoothly.
Good.
Another way besides presentations and seminars that we reach out to educate people is through our website. And you might want to make a note of that, jot that down somewhere, because I'm going to show you a sample page from our funeral home price survey, and it is available on this website, all 10 pages. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. So basically, every January we go out and we pick up price lists from the 55 funeral homes in our 5-county service area. And we bring the price surveys that they're required to give us back. And we go and we look for certain prices for certain kinds of goods and services. And excuse me, we put that in the survey. Whoops, pardon. We consider this our flagship publication. Hospices in the area are very familiar with it. And I've had more than one hospice social worker tell me that she carries our surveys in her essential information and resources packet for hospice patients and their families. So we love the fact that once we get these prices put together, people are just astounded. Look at this example here. We have several funeral homes in our area that for direct cremation, which means no services beforehand. It's just very simple and straightforward. They go out, they get the body of the deceased person. There's a 48-hour waiting period in Texas before someone can be cremated. So in that 48-hour period, the body is put into refrigeration. Then it is cremated and the family is called to come pick up the cremated remains. It's very simple and straightforward. As it says here on the slide, we have several that charge less than $700. And on the same survey page, if you run your finger down the direct cremation column, you'll see there are funeral homes that charge more than $4,000 for the same thing. So I have found in the 11 years that I've been involved with FCA that people of all income ranges are basically interested in saving money. As one fellow said to me, he said, I would really rather leave my money above ground. So this survey is a good step forward in helping you determine which the more affordable funeral homes are. It doesn't mean you have to sacrifice the kind of services you want, but why pay more for them necessarily than you have to? All right, I do want you to know that the Federal Trade Commission in 1984, actually they passed it in 82, but it went into effect in 1984, published or created a law called the Funeral Rule. And I want to acquaint you with a few features of it because they are really so important to know when you deal with funeral homes. And they know it too. The funeral homes, they got a nice big packet of material about what the Federal Trade Commission requires them to do. Now, this is the first thing here is you can walk into a funeral home, obtain what's called the general price list, listing all their goods and services. Sometimes they attach a casket price list to the general price list, and sometimes they don't. But basically, if you want a list and ask for it, you will get it. You don't have to sit down in the conference room and wait for a funeral director to bring it to you and strike up a conversation. It should be in and out. Now, another thing that's nice to know, especially if you are kind of pressed for time, is that funeral providers are required to give their prices over the phone. Of course, it's helpful if you have in mind what kind of funeral service you want. That will help you decide what kinds of questions you need to ask when you make these calls. here, oh, this is my favorite. Embalming is not required by law. Now, there are a few exceptions. For example, if a body is transported on a common carrier, embalming is required. But basically, it's very interesting. Often when a funeral home sends somebody out to pick up the body of a deceased person, they will plop some papers down on the table and say, here's some papers that we need for you to sign. And sometimes the embalming authorization will be one of those papers. Now, no one who has just lost a loved one is really just got all their thoughts together and they're calm and they're organized. They're in a state of shock and grief. And it's just so easy just to say, where do I sign? Blah, blah, blah. And before you know it, they will have signed the embalming authorization form. Interestingly enough, at the bottom of this form, there is a place to sign to decline embalming. I just want to say one more thing about that. Even though it's not required by law, you will often find funeral homes, if you want an open casket viewing at either a vigil, a wake, or a funeral service, the funeral home will tell you it is our policy that we do not permit the public viewing of unembalmed remains. So there's an answer to that. Actually, because there are some religious traditions that don't permit embalming, and it's perfectly fine actually to refrigerate a body until it's time for the vigil or the funeral service, and they can take the body out of refrigeration a little. It's not frozen, by the way. Take the body out of refrigeration, just let it be there, and maybe blot a little moisture off the face and good to go. But funeral homes are counting on the fact that you don't know that. Oh, and here, oh, gee, I have so many favorites. What can I say? I love this one. Funeral homes will, if you want a service that involves the casket, they just have the flow. And part of the flow is walking you back to the casket room or to some place where you can look at caskets in a catalog or online or whatever. Like, well, but of course. But what you need to know is that you can actually buy a casket for a lot less from other sources. Believe it or not, Costco and Walmart sell caskets online. Now, don't expect to walk into the store and go back, you know, where the tissues and the water and all that is. And then behind that, there's all these caskets and urns at Costco. They're not in the store, but they are online. And the same thing with Walmart, not in the store, but on their websites. And even Amazon, no surprise, has gotten their hand in on this. And then you can even Google casket sales, and you'll find companies that sell nothing but caskets. And you can use that information to negotiate a lower price at the funeral home, or you can actually buy the casket or urn from this other provider, and the funeral home must take possession of it. It is the biggest single money maker at the funeral home is the caskets. So I've already, in my enthusiasm, covered pretty much what's on this slide. Keep in mind too, you know, when a death occurs, often people just are wringing their hands saying, I wish I could do something. I wish I could do something to help and support this family. And there are people who are carpenters, and there are all kinds of instructions and diagrams in books and on the internet on how to make a handmade coffin. And believe me, they can be very beautiful and very simple, and also sort of part of the green burial movement, where you're not just putting metal in the ground, you're actually putting something in the ground that over a period of time will biodegrade, especially if it's not in a what they call an outer burial container. That is, you know, the box. in which some cemeteries insist a coffin be placed. It's really all for landscaping purposes. Okay, now because this funeral home price survey is so helpful, I want to walk you through it just a little bit, but don't worry about furiously taking notes about anything I'm going to tell you, because when you go to the website and you get to that funeral home price survey, everything I'm going to tell you is there. Before the price chart starts, there are 2 pages that explain in detail what each column in the survey covers, what prices are or are not included. And then the last 2 pages of the survey have, they're called tips, good tips to make you a savvy consumer. Okay, I earlier mentioned this, that every January we go out and we pick up 50+ surveys, and we bring the information back and we put it on worksheets. Sometimes, like with direct cremation, it's interesting. Some funeral homes, when you get to the direct cremation charge on their price list, they will include the crematory fee. Other funeral homes don't include the crematory fee. Oh, so, I mean, these are the kinds of questions that if you call to ask for prices, if I were calling to ask for what currently is your direct cremation price, I would definitely say, does that include the crematory fee? Well, in our survey, we know about these little things, and we make sure that everything is the same. Every direct cremation price shown in our survey does include the crematory fee. So here's a sample page, which Leo, did you send the handout around to anybody?
No, I didn't,
That's
but I
okay.
can send it right after the meeting.
Oh, it's okay. You know what? They can just go out and get the full survey, and it'll look just like this, except more. So anyway, I took a sample page out of the survey here in column 1. And in the survey, if you download it off the website, you'll see hot links, okay? Every funeral home, if they have a website and you click on the name in blue, it'll take you right out to their website. Now, you may notice that we have an address for each of these funeral homes, but we do not put the zip code. We do not encourage people to shop by zip code. I mean, if you were going to have a bridge party every Monday evening at the funeral home for the next 5 years, location would be really important. But since you're only going to use it, hopefully occasionally, don't limit your choices to just funeral homes that are, so to speak, right around the block, because it could needlessly cost you extra money. All right, so that's what we have in the first column. Now the second column, it's important when you look at the chart to make note of what was the effective date of the price list when we picked them up in January of 2021. This avoids the difficulty of, you see the price on our chart, and then the funeral home gives you a different price. And then you go like, well, either they're lying or FCA made a huge typo, but either way, it's really discouraging. The first question I would ask is, if you get a different price from a funeral home, is, what is the effective date of the price list from which you're giving me these prices? Because, I mean, think about it. Now we're in September. So it's been 9 months since we picked up the list with these prices. And at any point along the way, a funeral home can revise their price list. But it's still a really good guide, even if some prices have changed, because generally the more affordable ones will continue to be the more affordable ones, and the more expensive ones will continue to be the more expensive ones. But that's why we put the effective date of the price list on the survey, so you don't get caught off guard. All right, this is a very popular option around the country. Direct cremation is now well more than 50% of the population. So of course, we're going to have that price on our price list. And this is the one that I told you prices go anywhere from actually $595 is the lowest at the time that we picked up these lists, and over 4,000. So you just pick a column and then the chart goes on for about 5 or 6 pages, and you just keep running your finger down the column, remembering that all of the funeral providers are listed alphabetically. And the price will always include the crematory fee in our chart. And it will also include what they call the alternative container, which basically is a rectangular shaped cardboard box with a lid and a reinforced bottom, because the law requires that a body be put into a combustible container. You can't just, I don't know, wrap it in a sheet and put it in a cremation chamber. Now, there are various reasons and that people would choose ground burial. So this column here, this price is what they call immediate burial in the funeral home's least expensive casket, and no services beforehand. Just pretty much the way you do with cremation. Go out, pick up the body, refrigerate it while arrangements are being made with the cemetery, and then the simplest casket. And there you go. Of course, this does not include the cemetery fee. Now, the next category, I keep clicking on y'all's faces instead of the PowerPoint. Here we go. Now, this is a basic full service funeral with a viewing beforehand and a funeral service either at the funeral home or at a house of worship typically. Again, don't worry, in the funeral home price survey that y'all are going to look at on our website, it explains exactly what charges are included here. Obviously not the cemetery and not the casket, because our thinking was but by the time somebody wants a full funeral service and they can afford it, there's no telling how much they're going to spend for a casket. They could get a casket for $3,000, or they might decide to get a casket for $30,000. So there's just no such thing as quote unquote the typical casket, which is why you would need to add the cost of the casket to whatever price you see in this column. Now here, we put this one-way mileage thing in, coming back around to what I said about we don't put in the zip code. When you look around and compare prices, keep in mind, this is how far a funeral home will travel in one direction to provide service before they even start to impose an additional miles charge. So look at that. I mean, you could just make your search area 25 miles in any direction from where you think the death will occur. Okay, here, this is interesting to just run your, even if you want cremation, this is an interesting column to run your finger up and down and see the range of casket prices at each of these funeral homes. Now, this is an important column because we want you to know, let me see, what do we want you to know? Oh yeah, okay, embalming's not required by law, but it's a big money maker for the funeral homes. So we want you to see what they charge, and embalming is included in that basic services fee. The one that I said it doesn't include the casket, embalming is included in that charge, but not any of the others. And finally, the first charge I always see on a general price list is what they call their professional services fee or their basic services fee. And basically, this covers their overhead cost and additional profit. And they do basically prorate it for things like direct cremation and immediate burial, because all they're doing really is picking up the body, putting it in refrigeration, and then either delivering it to the cemetery or to the crematory. Okay, we have found our members are very interested in which funeral homes are part of a big corporation like Service Corporation International, as opposed to smaller family-owned. And so that's one kind of thing that we put in our footnotes. And so footnotes matter. And there are a bunch of footnotes in the big survey out on the website. Okay, so here's how to get it. Go to fcactx.org. You may have to scroll down the page a little bit, but look for that oval that says current funeral home and cemetery price surveys. Just click on the oval and you will go to our surveys page. And it has both the 2020 cemetery survey and the 2021 funeral home survey. Again, don't get discouraged. Scroll down a little bit. I promise you both of those surveys are there. And then people basically join our organization, not only because we have a fantastic membership package with over 20 items in it, but they also they like the fact that we're doing this wonderful service for the community, because unfortunately, sooner or later, we're all going to need this kind of information. You can save a whole lot of money as a member putting member obituaries on our website, because the Statesman obituary page is the single most expensive per column inch page in the entire paper. Again, notice membership is a one-time payment. There's not renewals, and it covers everyone in your household. And I'm not being coy, it's $35. Okay, just, a few more reasons why people do join. Basically, they just love what we do, and they want to help us continue those services. We have a small office in the Austin Groups for the Elderly Building, and we have related expenses to that, plus materials that we use in our webmaster and so forth. Here's how to join if you feel so drawn. Again, just go out to our website and click on the Join Donate tab. Okay, do we have time for questions? What's in the chat, Leo?
Nothing in the chat at the moment, but I'm not sure if some people have questions. If you do, please raise your hand.
Yeah,
I have a
you can do
question.
so.
Oh.
Okay, go ahead, Norman.
It's more or less something that you touched very briefly upon, but I think it's worth extending a little bit, Nancy.
Yeah.
What I would call the end of life documentation requirements. And although most people go to attorneys to get their POAs, their powers of attorney, and their health proxies and such, I know that within the classes that I've held with you, there's a significant amount of time that you dedicate to the individual documents that are important for the families to know exactly what they're going to do. You might want to mention a little bit more about that.
Yeah, how much time do we have now? I don't want to be a hog.
We have 9 minutes, but we still have to close the meeting, so I would give you probably about 7.
Okay, yes, medical power of attorney, appointing somebody to make decisions for you when you can't make them for yourself for any number of reasons. The Texas Living Will, which is called the Directive to Physicians, we cover that. And we also have some directives having to do with what do you want done with your body after you've died, and who do you want to make sure that that happens. Those are called disposition directives. We do not get involved with people's financials. We find they're touchier about their money than they are about their lives. No kidding. And all you need is for one person just to misunderstand one little thing you said about the statutory durable power of attorney for financial matters. The next thing you know, we got a lawsuit. So we don't get involved with the financial directives, but we do with the medical ones and the disposition ones.
Glenda, go ahead. You had a question?
Yes, I just want to clarify that this is something that you should be having a discussion with your children about, because
Absolutely.
you never know when something's going to happen. My first husband died, I was 23 years old. So it's good to know ahead of time what to do.
Absolutely. And in the classes that I teach, we've had small group discussions where people sort of practiced because it's not easy. It's sometimes, you know, in class, when they say my funeral, it's the first time they've ever said that phrase. So it's nice to have chances to practice that a little bit. And it's so important, no matter what you put in your directives, you need to have these in-depth conversations so that whoever does end up making decisions for you really gets it. They really know what your heart deep convictions are about ventilators, and do you really want to stay alive in a coma for 9 months or not? It's so nuanced. The conversations are essential. And in the new member packet, in addition to directives, we also have a document called the final arrangement plan, where you can put out what your desires are. Do you want to be cremated, funeral? If you want a funeral, what songs do you want? Stuff like that.
Ma'am, go ahead, then Gaylord, then Tommy, please.
I might add that, you know, many of these people that prepare official documents, we pretty much lock them away in a safe for safekeeping. With these medical directives, you really need to share them with every family member so that everybody knows and they know where to find it so they can prove it to the medical staff if that's the case.
Yes, the last place you want to put these documents are like in a safe deposit box. You want the key people in your family to know, keep a notebook, keep a file folder somewhere, tell everybody what it is. Make liberal copies. Make sure the doctors that you continue to see on a regular basis, they should all have a copy of your directives. And just keep in mind, anytime you make changes to your directives, there's no crossing out. You have to start and do a fresh one again.
Gaylord, go ahead, please.
A good point, ma'am. Just for a little perspective, for several decades, I had the pleasure of representing the Texas Funeral Directors Association. And Nancy, that's the most understandable and effective presentation on what needs to be known before you go I've ever seen. And thank you so much. Let me ask a question. Maybe you touched on it. I even had to conduct a service lately for a cousin cremated. Is on your chart, and maybe it's in the footnotes or you may have mentioned, does the price for the cremation include a service and also the place where the cremated jar, so to speak, is placed?
The direct cremation charge in the chart does not include a memorial service afterwards or a funeral service prior to the cremation. When you pick up the cremated remains from the funeral home, basically they're in a plastic sack with a twisty tie and the ID that was associated with the body all throughout the process. And then it's up to the family to decide whether they want to scatter the ashes or perhaps put the cremated remains in a more standardized urn. But if they want to put the urn like in a columbarium or bury the urn in the ground, those prices are not included. However, if you do die in Travis County, there is a $20 medical examiner's permit fee if you're cremated.
Thank you. So the service or the location of the urn in one of these memorial walls, so to speak, would all be extra. And
yes,
that's just something.
Yes,
okay,
it's just like the burial plot would be in the opening and closing of the grave. The same thing with columbarium niches and the opening and closing of the niches and so forth. Those are separate.
And I asked because it seems like cremations have become much, much more popular lately. Is that your observation?
Well, it is. Green burial, though, is getting very popular. We have a green burial cemetery out in Cedar Creek called Eloise Woods. for example. And I know of another one that's being put together as we speak in Smithville.
Thank you.
Tommy, go ahead, please.
Yes, Nancy, thank you for all that information. We'll all need it at some time, I guess. Where in the process of the scheduling, as you were identifying what happens first, second, third, and fourth, is the rescuing of organs? If we have so designated multiple organs being delivered, where in that process do those organs get retrieved from?
If you have signed up with Donate Life Texas, maybe you have a little heart on your driver's license.
Yes.
You will not be an organ donor unless you die in a hospital or a place where they can put you on a ventilator immediately, because organs start to deteriorate very quickly. But there is a sort of a window with tissue. There's a little more leeway with that. Then there's also the option just to donate your whole body for medical research, or there's a body farm, quote unquote, down in San Marcos where you can donate your body for forensics research.
All right, thank you so much.
Sure. So tissue could be recovered at the funeral home if the body goes to the funeral home very quickly. And the same thing with eyes. There is a little latitude there, but organs has to go on the ventilator immediately for transplantation into living recipients.
In the interest of time, I'm going to hold the questions. Glenda, do you want to close the meeting? And just a quick question. Nancy, would you, sorry, it's not Glenda, it's Robert today, I'm sorry. Nancy, are you able to hold off a little while longer if in case there are a few more questions?
Are you kidding?
Okay, all right, so we'll just close the meeting. We'll just close the meeting for those who have to leave, because we normally do it from 12:30 to 1:30. And then whoever needs to stay on for more questions will do that. Robert, on to you.
Yes, thank you very much. And a very, very interesting program. We just want to close with two things. Firstly, with regards to the important dates that we have coming up. That's our the September the 9th to the 11th. Glenda and Patty and Ann will be going to the leadership convention in Des Moines. And that's,
We can't hear you. You got it closer to the mic.
oh, okay. The U.S. and Canada Leadership Forum. The sporting clay that we're having is September the 17th. We need some volunteers and we need more teams. And on the 16th, I think we have Gaylord. Could you just give us a quick shot at the what's coming up then? Gaylord disappeared. Oh, you're muted. Anyway,
I'm sorry. Repeat, please, Robert.
Could you give us a shot with regards to what's happening on the 16th of December?
The holiday party.
Yes, our holiday party is again scheduled for the Lions Municipal Clubhouse, 11 to 1. And we have that reserved, and we will obviously be working and trying to determine what our charity will be, and we hope all will participate. And they've got a new system with the city of Austin of how we reserve, which was kind of a challenge, but very functional, but we're all set. And the Lions Clubhouse is reserved for Thursday, December 16th for the holiday party.
Good job, good job. And the other thing is our program next week is by is sponsored by John Niefler.
Yes,
and,
I will give you that.
Yes.
Next week on September 9, our Zoom presenter will be Alan Graham, the founder of Mobile Loaves and Fishes and the creator of the 51-acre master plan Community First Village in Southeast Travis County, which provides housing and services for over 200 previously homeless men and women of our neighbors. Wow. Now, that's the program for next Thursday. Immediately following the next Saturday, September the 11th at 2 p.m., there will be a walking site visit of Community First Village. There will be a vehicle for those few of us with mobility impairments. So this will be a walking tour for those of us that will be attending. There will be some details sent this week. Be prepared to indicate whether you would be prepared to plan to attend that field trip at Community First Village. Thanks.
Thank you, John. And with that, it ends our meeting. And if you want to discuss a few more things with Nancy, just hang on and Leonora will handle it. Thank you.
Okay,
you
we
all.
had Mark Hastings. Gaylord, hold on. We had a few more people before you. So we had Mark Hastings. Go ahead, Mark, if you're still there.
Yeah, I just had a question. I think you covered this, but do cemeteries require an outer burial container, or is that something that's really not required?
The policy varies from cemetery to cemetery. Typically, the commercial cemeteries, Cook Walden cemeteries, for example, and the city cemeteries here in Austin, they do. Smaller, kind of rural cemeteries tend not to.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I do want to add to that. It doesn't mean, though, that you have to buy a big metal vault that matches in color and texture the metal casket that's supposed to go inside. A simple concrete grave liner, which will run you maybe $800 or $900, satisfies the need, which is to keep the landscape level for the mowers at the cemetery.
So just to keep it from subsiding over time.
Yeah, that's really what it is.
Okay.
And in the natural burial cemetery, at least out the one in Cedar Creek, periodically the grounds crew there, because you could never put concrete or polyester or anything unnatural in a green burial plot, they go out and they add more dirt as the ground starts to sink a little bit over a period of time.
Okay, ma'am, go ahead, please. And please keep yourself muted if you're not talking. The reason is the recording will jump onto you at the slightest sounds. So that's why I keep muting you. Okay, guys? Thank you so much.
I just want to make the comment where we're talking about parts donation. There's an opportunity to donate your entire body to the medical school for education. And if you've had any family members that have been through the medical education, that's a very near and dear thing to do.
Yeah, you might be interested to know that Dell Medical School, they have not yet set up a body donation program. So they get their cadavers from UT Medical Center up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which is huge. And then there's another medical center in San Antonio. But you, and then typically donations end in cremation. So, I mean, that's good to know.
The one I'm familiar with is UTMB in Galveston.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, can I step in? Leonore, okay. I have experience with MD Anderson in Houston, and that was a very, very good one. When my husband, should he rest in peace, Arnie, passed away, we just called a number, and within 20 minutes, someone came to our house and picked up Arnie and brought him to MD Anderson, and they experimented, and then they cremated him and sent him home, or sent his ashes home. So that's a very good one. It's very efficient.
I do want to add that if you're thinking about whole body donation, hopefully it will go as you wish it to go. And it's even better to go out and look at their websites and call them and ask questions if you have any. Fill out the paperwork, because often they do want to know your medical history. Not even just your medical history, but sort of your lifestyle history. Like was most of your adult life sedentary? That would be an example of that. Anyway, we can never be absolutely positive that our bodies will be accepted at the time of death because we don't know the circumstances at the time of death. You know, you could have gone ahead and registered and talked to them and they said, oh boy, you know, all systems go, really looks good. And then it turns out that you don't die of the disease that you had. You get killed in a car wreck and your body is mangled and mutilated, and suddenly it is not eligible for donation anymore. So I'm not trying to be a killjoy. I'm just saying, have a backup plan.
Yeah. I had a question on,
I have a backup plan, and that is, I work with the natural funeral. And if they won't take my body, then I will be cremated here in town.
Mm-hmm.
That's my backup plan. And
Well,
it's,
I congratulate you on thinking about it and
we
making some decisions.
We started in the 90s, 1990 something. And everyone thought we were crazy, but we needed to do it. And I was very glad that we had the foresight to do it when we were in our 60s rather than our 80s.
I had a question on the two concepts, like out-of-state burials. So in other words, you have these consumer safeguards in place. And then how does that, what should one do? And it may be very in-depth and you can steer us to a link on the site, but what can one do to sort of maintain some of this consumer awareness if they have to, you know, transport a body out of state? So many of us are not from this area. And candidly, I think my wife will enjoy the 48 hours before cremation. It'll give her time to come up with an alibi. So I think she's going to be excited about that. But the only other question I had is in regards to pre-planning. I mean, there's so many of these companies that sell these pre-planning things, and certainly a lot of them are hand in glove with the funeral industry. But are there ones or concepts that can take a lot of these consumer safeguards and sort of integrate with a pre-plan type of thing, if you can?
What we suggest to give people maximum flexibility is to decide what kind of funeral services you want. Then do a little shopping around to get an idea of what is that likely to cost, maybe factor in a little cost of living increase, and then open up a payable on death account with someone that you trust who will go get the money from that account, which is specific. You all have agreed this account is to pay for my final arrangements. That way, the money really never, you have total control of it. And if you decide to move to Raleigh next year, you just close the account, go to Raleigh and open up a payable on death account there, as opposed to getting all involved with prepaid funeral contracts, which are overseen in Texas by the Department of Banking. And the Department of Banking thinks it's such a critical issue that they actually developed a whole website about prepaid funeral contracts.
Nancy, I just wanted to add, I should have mentioned this earlier. This is Gaylord Armstrong again, that based on my experience I mentioned earlier, it's critical that we be aware of, and that the consumer rights provision you refer be understood and known, because that provides an awful lot of protections. Based on my experience, it can sure be critical. And thank you again for an excellent presentation.
Well, thank you. You're so kind.
I
mean, just within the last few years, we unfortunately had a local funeral home that was selling people, well, people thought they were buying prepaid funeral contracts, trust-based funeral contracts, but the money was not being put into a trust.
I've been there too. I've drafted those contracts in negotiation with the Department of Banking, and it's very, very critical to be working with someone that you know and trust.
Absolutely. So they're either trust-based or they're insurance-based. And before I ever got involved with this FCA, I went to a funeral home here in Austin, and I bought a pre-need for a cremation. And at that point, what the cremation was actually more expensive. It was about $1,000, whereas now it's $595. Boom. Well, anyway, so I've decided that I'm going to do something different anyway. And I was really lucky that I contacted the insurance company and they sent me a surrender form. And I was very fortunate. I got my $1,000 back plus the interest it had earned. Not everyone is that fortunate. And I just do want to say there are some funeral providers in our area that hire people to do nothing but sell pre-need. And they're very charming and very persuasive, but just know that you have alternatives. There's a good handout in the member packet on pros and cons of prepaid funeral contracts.
Nancy?
Yes.
Could you talk about what happens if you die outside the United States? I love to travel, and I hope someday I get to go back to traveling.
Right.
And should I pass away in a foreign country, what's the situation there?
Well, basically, especially if you consider cremation, and this is true even if you die away from Austin, if cremation does happen to be your choice, it's far more affordable to be cremated in the location where you died. Now, if it's in a foreign country, I would definitely get the consulate, the American consulate, embassy, all that involved. There'll be extra paperwork and things like that. But the transportation of a body can be very expensive.
And you're allowed to transport from a foreign country back into the United States. You're allowed to transport ashes.
Oh, yes, absolutely. You can even, carry them in a satchel aboard the plane. Just make sure that you have the proper paperwork.
Yes.
Because when you go through the security check line, if you don't have the proper paperwork required, and the funeral home can explain to you what all's involved with that, the TSA people will not open the urn to see if you're telling the truth. So just go prepared. The airlines have information on their websites about bringing cremated remains, and the post office even has a special box and a special label that says cremated remains. It's not inexpensive to mail them, but you cannot send cremated remains UPS or FedEx. They must go through the United States postal system.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Leonore? Oh, okay. I have one thing that hadn't come up here yet, and it has to do with regards to the death certificate.
Yes.
When it comes to the death certificate, if you haven't gone through a class like this or anything, or really give it much thought, you think, oh, I need maybe a couple of those, that'll be fine. I lucked out because I had conversed with someone else before, and I ordered 25 of them, and I was still short. So when it comes to that, keep it in mind. You can't have too many death certificates. They just seem like they just disappear.
Yes, the first death certificate currently is $21. And then each additional death certificate ordered at the same time is $4. So just think, $4 times 5 additional ones, you're at $20. Well, if you end up short, guess what? The next order, $21 for the first death certificate in the next order. So it's better to have too many than not enough. And when you have accounts that you know will require death certificates, it also wouldn't hurt to contact them and say, do you need a sort of an original certified death certificate, or would you accept a copy? but I would expect, always prepare that they're going to need a copy. And at $5 each, 25 wasn't nearly as expensive as an obituary.
And it's such a nuisance. So do we have all our questions answered?
I have a question. Going back
Last question?
to prepaid again, you said you have some information on the prepaid.
Yes, I would go out and I would just go out and Google Texas prepaid funeral contracts, and you will go right to the Department of Banking's website, which explains a lot.
Good.
In other words, get it directly from the source. I know a lot about it, but they could, it's very organized. Whatever you can think of, they probably have an answer for it.
So in our case, our prepaid has been about 20 years. Do you think you ought to go back and revisit that with the funeral company?
Well, yeah, I would make sure that the policy is still in force. Well, you know, I told you I had that $1,000 policy that I eventually was cashed in. The insurance company that originally was where the contract went changed ownership 4 times, but the policy number never changed. You know, I just think it would be good just to check, is the funeral home, if you bought it from a funeral home, are they still in business? Just check. I think it'll give you peace of mind.
Yeah. And also our thinking might have been changing now to cremation, so on. So yes, we need to do that. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, folks, are we all finished? All our questions in? Thanks.
Does everybody know about veterans burial benefits? Veteran cemeteries?
That's a good question.
Okay, let me just one more thing, because there may be a lot of veterans. Basically, if you're an honorably discharged veteran or the spouse of an honorably discharged veteran, the Veterans Administration pays for everything the minute the urn or the casket goes into the cemetery property, whether it's the state cemetery, for example, up in Killeen, Central Texas State Cemetery, or the National Cemetery in San Antonio, or anywhere else. Actually, those are the ones that are closest to Austin. They pay for everything, the burial site, the opening and closing of the grave, the marker, and so forth. If one, in a married couple, if one person's the veteran and the other person is not, just do know that they bury you up and down rather than side by side. If they're both the husband and the wife are veterans, then you can get buried side by side. If you want to not be buried in a veteran cemetery, the VA will still pay for a gravestone and also military honors. Oh, it's just beautiful. You know, the flag, a certificate of appreciation from the United States President.
On veterans burials, often where the government's not available to pay for, like in Austin, the various veterans groups provide the honors. I'm a member of the Jewish War Veterans, and we do the military ceremony for Jewish veterans buried in Austin.
That's nice to know. Thank you.
Okay, folks, I think we have to wrap it up here. Thank you, Nancy. What a fantastic program. And
My pleasure.
Norm, thanks for bringing that forward. That's great. We'll see you all next week.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, Nancy. Good program.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Excellent.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Norman,
Thank you,
for
Nancy.
setting up the program.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Mim, I think we can just talk later. I didn't hear from Patty or Steve if they were able to meet. So
Okay, I'm sure Patty is really busy with school starting.
Yeah, yeah. I
training
sent an
and-
email. I'll forward it to you if you could look at it for Ron.
Oh, I think I've seen the email.
Okay.
But he just had an appointment that he had to go, and
Sure.
he's on board. He just isn't available at this moment.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. I hope you had a good trip last week. You said you guys were
Oh,
traveling.
we did. We did. It was really a refreshing trip to go to. We went to Utopia.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and Utopia, we watched the film while we were there, and Garner, and we went to Los Maples.
Yeah.
You know, Los Maples is a little less than spectacular unless you go when the leaves change. But
Right.
anyway, we were surprised at how green it was out there, and
Wow.
it was really lush. Unfortunately, we saw an awful lot of apparently either oak wilt or ball moss, but some really large clumps of oak trees were dead, and
Wow.
good scene for a horror movie or something.
Mm.
Anyway, worth
Yeah.
going there, and nobody out there is worried about a mask.
No, yeah, you get outside of the Austin area. I've been doing some stuff down in Wimberley and nobody's.
Oh, well, maybe that's our problem, but this is such a sparsely populated area that
Yeah, yeah, sure.
but anyway, if you have a need to go to Utopia, we have a very, very good a coffee shop, but it's one of the little local bakeries. It was just, we went there every morning and had fresh baked scones. It was just so nice.
Oh, that sounds good. That sounds
Yeah.
good.
All right. Well, we'll
thanks.
talk later. Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Right.
There's only you and me. I'm going to close it.
Looks like it.
At the house now. I'm closing the meeting. Bye.
Bye.